All right, please take out your notebooks and go to the next right side and then write down this topic. It is understanding the point-slope form of a linear equation. And I'm going to show you something else right now that you do not need to write down. I just want to put what we're going to do today in a little bit of context. So you can just watch this. So there are three types of linear equations, or sometimes we call them the three forms of equations of a line. The first form, or the first type, is one that you've probably seen before. It's called slope-intercept form. And that's an equation like y equals 2x plus 3. That's in slope-intercept form. The 2 is the slope, the 3 is the y-intercept. The second form or type of linear equation is point-slope form. And you may not have seen that before. And we are going to be looking in depth at it today. The third type is, we call it standard form. And I don't know if you've seen that or not, but we're going to focus on that later this unit. So I just wanted you to know there's three different types. Today we are focusing on this. One other quick thing I just want to show you that you do not have to write down is a little review. This is something you should have done after the checkup. You were given a worksheet where you were told a point and the slope, and then you had to graph the line. So I want to make sure everybody's comfortable with that. So let's say if you had the point -2, 3, and then the slope was, let's say, -2. I want to make sure you all know how to graph that. So first you go to the point, -2, 3. -2 is the x, 3 is the y. So that would be the point right here. And then you would use the slope of -2 to make another point. And remember, -2 is the same as -2 over 1. So we go down 2 to the right 1, make a point. Down 2 to the right 1 again. Down 2 to the right 1. We can keep doing that. We can even start at our original point and go up 2 and to the left 1. Up 2 to the left 1. Okay. And then we have a line. Mine got off. That's okay. All right. So from a point and the slope, we can make a line. Today, we are going to be learning how to give the equation of that line from the point and the slope and several other things. So here's the part where I do want you to start writing down. And this is still at the top of your page, so you have the topic. Underneath it, write vocab. Okay, so if we have a point, we're going to call that point in general, we're going to call it x sub 1, comma, y sub 1. That signifies it could be any point on the graph, like it could be the point -2, 3, like we looked at in the example that I just showed you. Also, we're going to call the slope, to abbreviate it, it's called m, the letter m, which is kind of weird, but that's just how it is. So if that's our point and that's our slope, the point-slope form of a linear equation goes like this. It goes y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. That's the definition of the point-slope form of a linear equation. You basically need to memorize this. And once we work with it a few times, it's not that hard to memorize. But highlight it, circle it, put a star by it. You need to memorize this. All right, we're going to start using it now. So the first thing that we're going to do with this equation is practice writing it from a point and slope. So let's write that. So let's make the line under your, this is like the heading of your notes. Okay, so let's do from point and slope to the equation. So we'll do an example of that. So example 1, let's say our point is -3, 4. And at this point, you should be writing down everything that I write down. Okay, and let's say that our slope is 5. We want to write the equation. So write the equation of that line. We don't know what the y-intercept is, so we wouldn't want to do slope-intercept form. We want to use point-slope form because we have the point and the slope. And so I always start out by writing the general way. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And then we're just going to plug in these three pieces. So the negative 3, that's our x sub 1. The 4 is our y sub 1. And the 5 is our slope, or we call it m. So we're going to do y minus 4 equals m, which is 5, and times x minus our x sub 1 is negative 3. And then we want to clean it up a little bit. So we're going to leave it as y minus 4 equals 5 times x. We don't really want to say minus a negative because we know that's the same as adding a positive or just a single plus sign. So we write it as x plus 3. This is the equation of the line that goes through the point negative 3, 4, and has a slope of 5. Okay, I'm going to show you one more example just so that you have two of them in your notes. I'm going to go through it quicker. Let's say it's the point negative 2, 7, and let's say the slope is negative 1/3, and I want to write the equation of that line. It goes y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So I'm going to plug in these numbers. So it's going to be y minus, y sub 1 is 7, y minus 7, equals m is negative 1/3, times x minus, should be minus negative 2, which is really x plus 2 in the end. So y minus 7 equals negative 1/3 times x plus 2. And there we go. Okay, so you've got two examples of writing the equation from a point and the slope. Now we're going to look at writing the equation from 2 points. And it is similar to what we were doing before, but this time we have to find the slope ourselves. So example 1 of this is, let's say we have the points 3, 5, and the point negative 3, 8. So say there's a line that has those 2 points on it, and we want to write the equation of that line. Well, our first step is to find the slope, which we've already done. You should be comfortable with that by now. So I'm going to do the slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You might know it as y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. It's the same either way. It doesn't make a difference. I'm going to do 8 minus 5 over negative 3 minus 3. And I get 3 over negative 6, which is reduced to negative 1/2. Okay, so I found the slope. Second step is I just pick either point. Doesn't matter which one. I usually try to pick one that might be a little more simple to use, which would be one with no negatives. So I'm going to just pick the point 3, 5. I could have picked negative 3, 8. I'm getting these from these 2 points up here that we started with. So just pick one of those and then plug it into the equation. So remember, the equation goes y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And then this is my x1, this is my y1. So I'm going to do y minus 5 equals my m, was my slope, was negative 1/2, times x minus my x1 was 3. And then that is the equation of the line that goes through those 2 points. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at is how to write the equation from a graph. So put that heading, equation from a graph. Okay, so let's make a little graph. Here's a graph, and it's got a point here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right there. So that's really the point 0, 5. And let's say it goes through the point 2, negative 1. And there's our line. it's actually really similar to what we were doing before. We have to find the slope. Okay, and in this case I'm going to do rise over run. So from this top point, it is going down. It's at 5 high. It's going down to -1. So that's going down 6. So my rise is -6. My run is going, it's at 0. It's going over to 2. So it's going over 2. -6 over 2 reduces to -3. Okay, second step, maybe I'll go back to point. Second step is to pick a point. You could choose any point on this line. 2 of them are already highlighted for us, 0, 5, and 2, -1. I'll pick this point, 0, 5. It doesn't really matter. You can choose either or any of them. The third thing we do, let's get that up if you need it, is plug our numbers in into the equation. And so the equation, y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. Hopefully you're starting to get this memorized. It's going to be y minus 5 equals, my slope was -3, times x minus 0. And then we can clean it up a little bit, because y minus 5 equals -3. X minus 0 is just x. And so I don't even have to keep it in parentheses. I can just leave it like that. If you had it like this top way, that's okay. It's not wrong. This bottom way is just a little bit more simplified. Okay, so we did the equation from a graph. We're going to do just a couple more examples of something different, which is we're going to identify the point and slope from the equation. So we're kind of going backwards from what we were already doing. So example 1 of this will be, make a little bit more room. Let's say the equation was y minus 2 equals 3/4 times x minus 1. Now, I always like to have the general form written in front of me so that I can refer to it. So y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. So I want to identify the point and the slope. So our point, remember the point is going to go x sub 1, y sub 1. So in this case, our x sub 1 is right here. It's the number being subtracted from x, which in this case is a 1. So 1 is my x value, and then y sub 1 is the number being subtracted from the y, which in this case is a 2. So 1, 2 is my point. The slope's a little easier. It's just the number being multiplied out in front of the parentheses, which is 3/4. Okay, notice when you have a minus sign and a minus sign, 2 minus signs, then your values are both positive because the minus signs are part of the equation. The 2 is the number that was plugged in here. It's not a -2. And the 1 is the x value. Let's look at one where it's a little bit trickier because we do one that has a plus sign. So let's say example 2, if it was y plus 7 equals -1 times x minus 4, and then remember it goes y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. We want to find the point, which is the x sub 1, y sub 1, and we want to find the slope, which is the m. Okay, in this case, the point, the x sub 1, again, is the number that's being subtracted from the x, which is a 4, positive 4. However, the y value is the number being subtracted from the y, and we don't see a number being subtracted, we see a number being added. And so this is the simplified version of what came before it would have been like a y minus -7. So the number being subtracted from the y is -7. So that's our y value. So basically, the point will be like the opposite of what it looks like in the equation, because the equation includes a minus sign. So when it's x minus 4, it's a positive 4 for our point, for our x value. When it's y plus 7, it's a minus 7 is our y value of our point. So 4, -7, and then the slope is the m, which in this case is -1. And I could ask you to graph this line, which you could probably do at this point. Hopefully, you'd graph the point 4, -7, and go down 1 and over 1, and you would have that line. The last thing, I think, is we will make a graph from the equation. Okay, so one example is, let's say our equation was y minus 2 equals 2 times x plus 4. So first thing we want to do is identify the point. Okay, so our x value is going to be basically the opposite of what it looks like in here. It looks like a plus 4. It was really an x minus -4. So -4 is our x value. And then the y value is right here. And it's y minus 2, which means our y value is a positive 2. Okay, and then our slope, or the m, is 2, which is really like 2 over 1. And then we want to graph that. So we're just going to draw a little grid. I'm going to graph this point, -4, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, up. It's going to be right there. And then my slope is 2 or 2 over 1, so I'm going to go up 2 over 1. Up 2 over 1. It's hard to see when I don't have grid lines. But you should be writing on graph paper, so you should have a nice graph. All right, that's an example of making the line from the equation. If that was confusing for you, we are going to practice it in class. You can go back and watch any video or any examples that I did before. But hopefully this is enough so that when you come to class next time, you will be able to do the practice. The end.